All right, hey guys, Aaron Markley with Critical Response Training. Got another Tuesday training tip for you. Today's going to be a little bit more of an intellectual discussion. And while all the range day shoot 'em up stuff is super fun and exciting, it's really important that we understand the principles that underpin our ability to be better proactive self-protectors. And to that end, there are a few concepts better than the OODA Loop to know and understand. All right, so the OODA Loop is a concept that was put together by Colonel John Boyd, who was an Air Force fighter pilot back in the Korean War. And he really just basically took the way we make decisions and he broke it into this 4-step process. And by doing that, it allows us to focus on each step of the process so we can make better, safer, faster decisions under enormous loads of stress. All right, so OODA Loop stands for this: observation, orientation, decision, and action. This is such an important concept for proactive self-protectors because I think it really illustrates 3 really important truths. And that is the need for frequent and consistent practice, why people freeze under enormous stress loads, and why action is faster than reaction. All right, so like I said, we have OODA Loop, OODA, observation, orientation, decision, and action. All right, so let's take this and let's define these terms first and foremost. We have observation. That's pretty easy. What I see. This is my visual stimulus. This is my environment around me. What I see taking place. Then I have orientation. In this case, I'm talking about a mental orientation where I take my observed information and I run it up against all of my previously known experiences and or training to get an idea of what's likely to happen next. Then I have to make a decision about my observation and what it means to me, and then I have to actually apply an action to that decision. All right, so now that we got the terminology out of the way, let's take it and overlay it with something that we have a lot of frequent and consistent practice doing, and that is driving a motor vehicle. All right, so let's say we're driving a car through a residential neighborhood, and our observation is that a soccer ball just comes playfully bouncing out in front of our car. My orientation, my previously known experiences and or training, which tells me what's likely to happen next, which is, and that's right, everybody guessed it, a kid's probably going to come chasing that ball out into the road. So my decision is to slow down or stop. And then I have to actually apply a decision to that by picking up my leg, putting my foot on the brake pedal, depressing the brake pedal to slow down or stop. Now you do that so enormously quickly and so efficiently, you would think you went from observation directly to action, but you didn't. You actually went through the other steps as well, and you were able to do that because of frequent and consistent practice. Now you can make a direct correlation and overlay that directly on your self-defense skills, and this is why it's so important to be training frequently and realistically when it comes to our self-defense fundamentals. All right, so that's first truth. Truth number 1, the need for frequent and consistent practice. Now let's talk about why the freeze occurs. Now we always talk about fight or flight. This is the one everybody talks about, fight or flight. But there's a third F, and that's freeze. And this is really the most dangerous one. And I'm sure all of you have heard this. Hey man, if that joker would have came into my office and done that, I would have done this, that, or the other thing. And that might have been crawl under my desk, jump out the window, or maybe just jump up and go Jason Bourne on him. But the answer you get from a lot of people that were actually in these high-level stressful situations is that they froze. They couldn't move, they couldn't scream, they couldn't yell, they couldn't do anything. They just froze. And so why does that happen? Well, let's take the OODA Loop and let's change our observation now and see what happens. So instead of a soccer ball come bouncing out in front of our car, let's say we hear a scream, we turn around and our coworker's getting stabbed in the face. All right, now I go to orientation, and guess what? There's nothing there, right? There's no previously known experience and or training that tells me what's likely to happen next. And so now I'm jammed up. I got a roadblock here now, and I can't get to decision. And if I can't get to decision, I certainly can't get to action. All right? So we can see that when we don't have anything to plug in the orientation phase, this is where we get stuck, and this is where the freeze occurs. And so how do we get over that? Well, this is where scenario training really comes into play. Even getting some mental reps will allow you to be in the freeze state for a shorter duration of time. All right, so this is super important. We need to understand why the freeze occurs, because once we understand it, we can start learning how to defeat it. All right, ultimately the third truth I think that the OODA Loop illustrates is why action is faster than reaction. And this is really quick and easy. We can see that if my observation is your action, then I'm already 3 steps behind. Right? So I have to figure out what your action means to me. I have to make a decision on what to do about it, and then I've actually got to apply an action to it. And if your action is already underway, the likelihood of me catching up is nil. Okay, so we see that action is faster than reaction. This becomes really important really in unarmed self-defense situations, understanding how to de-escalate from proper stances and so forth, or even with our defensive handgun fundamentals, knowing what our draw to first shot time is and knowing when we might be able to launch a counter ambush if we're being threatened by somebody with lethal force and they happen to be distracted at some point in time. If we know our draw time, we may be able to launch an effective counter ambush. So these are just some really important concepts. And like I said, hey, you know, the OODA Loop concept in and of itself is a really big picture thing, and you really can't cover all of it, obviously, in this short setting. But anyway, just some really neat stuff to think about. And I think when we're trying to be better proactive self-protectors, we have to have a holistic picture of the whole thing. It's not just about the skills application part. Really, here is the biggest part of it all the way around. So anyway, I hope that was helpful for you guys. That's the OODA Loop. Hey, like I always say, get proper instruction and train with purpose.